Greetings from Exam Heist. We have identified important exam questions. Practice these important questions 2-3 times to get 100% success in exam. Subscribe and comment, share PDF in the below comment section to get PDF of these 40 important questions. If you want to access full dump, please visit www.examheist.com. We have 24/7 support available for your doubts and exam queries.
Question 1. You are developing a new application on a VM that is on your corporate network. The application will use Java Database Connectivity (JDBC) to connect to Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL. Your Cloud SQL instance is configured with IP address 192.168.3.48, and SSL is disabled. You want to ensure that your application can access your database instance without requiring configuration changes to your database. What should you do? Option A. Define a connection string using your Google username and password to point to the external public IP address of your Cloud SQL instance. Option B. Define a connection string using a database username and password to point to the internal private IP address of your Cloud SQL instance. Option C. Define a connection string using Cloud SQL auth proxy configured with a service account to point to the internal private IP address of your Cloud SQL instance. Option D. Define a connection string using Cloud SQL auth proxy configured with a service account to point to the external public IP address of your Cloud SQL instance. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Define a connection string using Cloud SQL auth proxy configured with a service account to point to the internal private IP address of your Cloud SQL instance. Question 2. Your digital native business runs its database workloads on Cloud SQL. Your website must be globally accessible 24/7. You need to prepare your Cloud SQL instance for high availability. You want to follow Google recommended practices. What should you do? Choose 2. Option A. Set up manual backups. Option B. Create a PostgreSQL database on premises as the HA option. Option C. Configure single zone availability for automated backups. Option D. Enable point-in-time recovery. Option A. Schedule automated backups. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Enable point-in-time recovery. Option A. Schedule automated backups. Question 3. Your company wants to move to Google Cloud. Your current data center is closing in 6 months. You are running a large, highly transactional Oracle application footprint on VMware. You need to design a solution with minimal disruption to the current architecture and provide ease of migration to Google Cloud. What should you do? Option A. Migrate applications and Oracle databases to Google Cloud VMware Engine. VMware Engine. Option B. Migrate applications and Oracle databases to Compute Engine. Option C. Migrate applications to Cloud SQL. Option D. Migrate applications and Oracle databases to Google Kubernetes Engine. GKE. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Migrate applications and Oracle databases to Google Cloud VMware Engine. VMware Engine. Question 4. Your customer has a global chat application that uses a multi-regional Cloud Spanner instance. The application has recently experienced degraded performance after a new version of the application was launched. Your customer asked you for assistance. During initial troubleshooting, you observed high read latency. What should you do? Option A. Use query parameters to speed up frequently executed queries. Option B. Change the Cloud Spanner configuration from multi-region to single region. Option C. Use SQL statements to analyze SPANNERSYS. READSTATS tables. Option D. Use SQL statements to analyze SPANNERSYS. QUERYSTATS tables. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Use SQL statements to analyze SPANNERSYS. READSTATS tables. Question 5. Your company has PostgreSQL databases on premises and on Amazon Web Services. AWS. You are planning multiple database migrations to Cloud SQL in an effort to reduce costs and downtime. You want to follow Google recommended practices and use Google native data migration tools. You also want to closely monitor the migrations as part of the cutover strategy. What should you do? Option A. Use Database Migration Service to migrate all databases to Cloud SQL. Option B. Use Database Migration Service for one-time migrations. And use third-party or partner tools for change data capture. CDC. Style migrations. Option C. Use data replication tools and CDC tools to enable migration. Option D. Use a combination of database migration service and partner tools to support the data migration. Strategy. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Use database migration service to migrate all databases to Cloud SQL. Question 6. You are setting up a bare metal solution environment. You need to update the operating system to the latest version. You need to connect the bare metal solution environment to the internet so you can receive software updates. What should you do? Option A. Set up a static external IP address in your VPC network. Option B. Set up Bring Your Own IP BYOIP in your VPC. Option C. Set up a Cloud NAT gateway on the Compute Engine VM. Option D. Set up Cloud NAT service. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Set up a Cloud NAT gateway on the Compute Engine VM. Question 7. Your organization is running a MySQL workload in Cloud SQL. Suddenly you see a degradation in database performance. You need to identify the root cause of the performance degradation. What should you do? Option A. Use Logs Explorer to analyze log data. Option B. Use Cloud Monitoring to monitor CPU, memory, and storage utilization metrics. Option C. Use Error Reporting to count, analyze, and aggregate the data. Option D. Use Cloud Debugger to inspect the state of an application. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Use Cloud Monitoring to monitor CPU, memory, and storage utilization metrics. Question 8. You work for a large retail and e-commerce company that is starting to extend their business globally. Your company plans to migrate to Google Cloud. You want to use platforms that will scale easily, handle transactions with the least amount of latency, and provide a reliable customer experience. You need a storage layer for sales transactions and current inventory levels. You want to retain the same relational schema that your existing platform uses. What should you do? Option A. Store your data in Firestore in a multi-region location, and place your compute resources in one of the constituent regions. Option B. Deploy Cloud Spanner using a multi-region instance, and place your compute resources close to the default leader region. Option C. Build an in-memory cache in Memory Store, and deploy to the specific geographic regions where your application resides. Option D. Deploy a Bigtable instance with a cluster in one region and a replica cluster in another geographic region. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Deploy Cloud Spanner using a multi-region instance. And place your compute resources close to the default leader region. Question 9. You host an application in Google Cloud. The application is located in a single region and uses Cloud SQL for transactional data. Most of your users are located in the same time zone and expect the application to be available 7 days a week, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. You want to ensure regular maintenance updates to your Cloud SQL instance without creating downtime for your users. What should you do? Option A. Configure a maintenance window during a period when no users will be on the system. Control the order of update by setting non-production instances to earlier and production instances to later. Option B. Create your database with one primary node and one RED replica in the region. Option C. Enable maintenance notifications for users. And reschedule maintenance activities to a specific time after notifications have been sent. Option D. Configure your Cloud SQL instance with high availability enabled. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Configure a maintenance window during a period when no users will be on the system. Control the order of update by setting non-production instances to earlier and production instances to later. Question 10. Your team recently released a new version of a highly consumed application to accommodate additional user traffic. Shortly after the release, you received an alert from your production monitoring team that there is consistently high replication lag between your primary instance and the read replicas of your Cloud SQL for MySQL instances. You need to resolve the replication lag. What should you do? Option A. Identify and optimize slow-running queries. Or set parallel replication flags. Option B. Stop all running queries. And recreate the replicas. Option C. Edit the primary instance to upgrade to a larger disk. And increase vCPU count. Option D. Edit the primary instance to add additional memory. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Identify and optimize slow-running queries. Or set parallel replication flags. Question 11. Your organization operates in a highly regulated industry. Separation of concerns, SOC, and security principle of least privilege, POLP, are critical. The operations team consists of Person A is a database administrator. Person B is an analyst who generates metric reports. Application C is responsible for automatic backups. You need to assign roles to team members for Cloud Spanner. Which roles should you assign? Option A. Roles, Spanner. Database admin for person A roles, Spanner. Database reader for person B roles, Spanner. Backup writer for application C. Option B. Roles, Spanner. Database admin for person A roles, Spanner. Database reader for person B roles, Spanner. Backup admin for application C. Option C. Roles, Spanner. Database admin for person A roles, Spanner. Database user for person B roles, Spanner. Database reader for application C. Option D. Roles, Spanner. Database admin for person A roles, Spanner. Database user for person B roles, Spanner. Backup writer for application C. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Roles, Spanner. Database admin for person A roles, Spanner. Database reader for person B roles, Spanner. Backup writer for application C. Question 12. You are designing an augmented reality game for iOS and Android devices. You plan to use Cloud Spanner as the primary backend database for game state storage and player authentication. You want to track in-game rewards that players unlock at every stage of the game. During the testing phase, You discovered that costs are much higher than anticipated. But the query response times are within the SLA. You want to follow Google recommended practices. You need the database to be performant and highly available while you keep costs low. What should you do? Option A. Manually scale down the number of nodes after the peak period has passed. Option B. Use interleaving to co-locate parent and child rows. Option C. Use the Cloud Spanner Query Optimizer to determine the most efficient way to execute the SQL query. Option D. Use granular instance sizing in Cloud Spanner and Autoscaler. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Use granular instance sizing in Cloud Spanner and Autoscaler. Question 13. You recently launched a new product to the US market. You currently have 2 Bigtable clusters in one US region to serve all the traffic. Your marketing team is planning an immediate expansion to APAC. You need to roll out the regional expansion while implementing high availability according to Google recommended practices. What should you do? Option A. Maintain a target of 23% CPU utilization by locating cluster A in Zone US Central 1A, Cluster B in Zone Europe West 1D, Cluster C in Zone Asia East 1B. Option B. Maintain a target of 23% CPU utilization by locating cluster A in Zone US Central 1A, Cluster B in Zone US Central 1B, Cluster C in Zone US East 1A. Option C. Maintain a target of 35% CPU utilization by locating cluster A in Zone US Central 1A, Cluster B in Zone Australia Southeast 1A, Cluster C in Zone Europe West 1D, Cluster D in Zone Asia East 1B. Option D. Maintain a target of 35% CPU utilization by locating cluster A in Zone US Central 1A, Cluster B in Zone US Central 2A, Cluster C in Zone Asia Northeast 1B, Cluster D in Zone Asia East 1B. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Maintain a target of 35% CPU utilization by locating cluster A in Zone US Central 1A, Cluster B in Zone US Central 2A, Cluster C in Zone Asia Northeast 1B, Cluster D in Zone Asia East 1B. Question 14. Your e-commerce website captures user clickstream data to analyze customer traffic patterns in real time and support personalization features on your website. You plan to analyze this data using big data tools. You need a low latency solution that can store 8 terabytes of data and can scale to millions of read and write requests per second. What should you do? Option A. Write your data into Bigtable and use Dataproc and the Apache HBase libraries for analysis. Option B. Deploy a Cloud SQL environment with read replicas for improved performance. Use DataStream to export data to cloud storage and analyze with Dataproc and the cloud storage connector. Option C. Use memory store to handle your low latency requirements and for real-time analytics. Option D. Stream your data into BigQuery and use Dataproc and the BigQuery storage API to analyze large volumes of data. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Write your data into Bigtable and use Dataproc and the Apache HBase libraries for analysis. Question 15. Your company uses Cloud Spanner for a mission-critical inventory management system that is globally available. You recently loaded Stock Keeping Unit (SKU) and product catalog data from a company acquisition and observed hotspots in the Cloud Spanner database. You want to follow Google recommended schema design practices to avoid performance degradation. What should you do? Choose 2. Option A. Use an auto-incrementing value as the primary key. Option B. Normalize the data model. Option C. Promote low cardinality attributes in multi-attribute primary keys. Option D. Promote high cardinality attributes in multi-attribute primary keys. Option A. Use bit reverse sequential value as the primary key. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Promote high cardinality attributes in multi-attribute primary keys. Option A. Use bit reverse sequential value as the primary key. Question 16. You are managing multiple applications connecting to a database on Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL. You need to be able to monitor database performance to easily identify applications with long-running and resource-intensive queries. What should you do? Option A. Use log messages produced by Cloud SQL. Option B. Use query insights for Cloud SQL. Option C. Use the cloud monitoring dashboard with available metrics from Cloud SQL. Option D. Use Cloud SQL instance monitoring in the Google Cloud Console. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Use query insights for Cloud SQL. Question 17. You are building an application that allows users to customize their website and mobile experiences. The application will capture user information and preferences. User profiles have a dynamic schema, and users can add or delete information from their profile. You need to ensure that user changes automatically trigger updates to your downstream BigQuery data warehouse. What should you do? Option A. Store your data in Bigtable and use the user identifier as the key. Use one column family to store user profile data and use another column family to store user preferences. Option B. Use Cloud SQL and create different tables for user profile data and user preferences from your recommendations model. Use SQL to join the user profile data and preferences. Option C. Use Firestore in native mode and store user profile data as a document. Update the user profile with preferences specific to that user and use the user identifier to query. Option D. Use Firestore in data store mode and store user profile data as a document. Update the user profile with preferences specific to that user and use the user identifier to query. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Use Firestore in native mode and store user profile data as a document. Update the user profile with preferences specific to that user and use the user identifier to query. Question 18. Your application uses Cloud SQL for MySQL. Your users run reports on data that relies on near real-time. However, the additional analytics caused excessive load on the primary database. You created a read replica for the analytics workloads. But now your users are complaining about the lag in data changes and that their reports are still slow. You need to improve the report performance and shorten the lag in data replication without making changes to the current reports. Which two approaches should you implement? Choose two. Option A. Create secondary indexes on the replica. Option B. Create additional read replicas and partition your analytics users to use different read replicas. Option C. Disable replication on the read replica and set the flag for parallel replication on the read replica. Re-enable replication and optimize performance by setting flags on the primary instance. Option D. Disable replication on the primary instance and set the flag for parallel replication on the primary instance. Re-enable replication and optimize performance by setting flags on the read replica. Option A. Move your analytics workloads to BigQuery and set up a streaming pipeline to move data and update BigQuery. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Create additional read replicas and partition your analytics users to use different read replicas. Option C. Disable replication on the read replica. And set the flag for parallel replication on the read replica. Re-enable replication and optimize performance by setting flags on the primary instance. Question 19. You are evaluating Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL as a possible destination for your on-premises PostgreSQL instances. Geography is becoming increasingly relevant to customer privacy worldwide. Your solution must support data residency requirements and include a strategy to configure where data is stored, control where the encryption keys are stored, govern the access to data. What should you do? Option A. Replicate Cloud SQL databases across different zones. Option B. Create a Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL instance on Google Cloud for the data that does not need to adhere to data residency requirements. Keep the data that must adhere to data residency requirements on premises. Make application changes to support both databases. Option C. Allow application access to data only if the users are in the same region as the Google Cloud region for the Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL database. Option D. Use features like Customer Managed Encryption Keys, CMEK, VPC service controls, and Identity and Access Management in policies. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Use features like Customer Managed Encryption Keys, CMEK, VPC service controls, and Identity and Access Management in policies. Question 20. Your customer is running a MySQL database on premises with read replicas. The nightly incremental backups are expensive and add maintenance overhead. You want to follow Google recommended practices to migrate the database to Google Cloud. And you need to ensure minimal downtime. What should you do? Option A. Create a Google Kubernetes Engine (GKE) cluster. Install MySQL on the cluster. And then import the dump file. Option B. Use the MySQL dump utility to take a backup of the existing on-premises database. And then import it into Cloud SQL. Option C. Create a compute engine VM. Install MySQL on the VM. And then import the dump file. Option D. Create an external replica. And use Cloud SQL to synchronize the data to the replica. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Create an external replica. And use Cloud SQL to synchronize the data to the replica. Question 21. Your team uses thousands of connected IoT devices to collect device maintenance data for your oil and gas customers in real time. You want to design inspection routines, device repair, and replacement schedules based on insights gathered from the data produced by these devices. You need a managed solution that is highly scalable, supports a multi-cloud strategy, and offers low latency for these IoT devices. What should you do? Option A. Use Firestore with Looker. Option B. Use Cloud Spanner with Data Studio. Option C. Use MongoDB Atlas with charts. Option D. Use Bigtable with Looker. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Use MongoDB Atlas with charts. Question 22. Your application follows a microservices architecture and uses a single large Cloud SQL instance, which is starting to have performance issues as your application grows. In the Cloud Monitoring dashboard, the CPU utilization looks normal. You want to follow Google recommended practices to resolve and prevent these performance issues while avoiding any major refactoring. What should you do? Option A. Use Cloud Spanner instead of Cloud SQL. Option B. Increase the number of CPUs for your instance. Option C. Increase the storage size for the instance. Option D. Use many smaller Cloud SQL instances. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Use many smaller Cloud SQL instances. Question 23. You need to perform a one-time migration of data from a running Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in the US Central 1 region to a new Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in the US East 1 region. You want to follow Google recommended practices to minimize performance impact on the currently running instance. What should you do? Option A. Create and run a data flow job that uses JDBC.io to copy data from one Cloud SQL instance to another. Option B. Create two data stream connection profiles and use them to create a stream from one Cloud SQL instance to another. Option C. Create a SQL dump file in cloud storage using a temporary instance and then use that file to import into a new instance. Option D. Create a CSV file by running the SQL statement select into out file. Copy the file to a cloud storage bucket and import it into a new instance. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Create a SQL dump file in cloud storage using a temporary instance and then use that file to import into a new instance. Question 24. You are running a mission-critical application on a Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL database with a multi-zonal setup. The primary and read replica instances are in the same region but in different zones. You need to ensure that you split the application load between both instances. What should you do? Option A. Use cloud load balancing for load balancing between the Cloud SQL primary and read replica instances. Option B. Use PG Bouncer to set up database connection pooling between the Cloud SQL primary and read replica instances. Option C. Use HTTPS load balancing for database connection pooling between the Cloud SQL primary and read replica instances. Option D. Use the Cloud SQL Auth proxy for database connection pooling between the Cloud SQL primary and read replica instances. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Use cloud load balancing for load balancing between the Cloud SQL primary and read replica instances. Question 25. Your organization deployed a new version of a critical application that uses Cloud SQL for MySQL with high availability and binary logging enabled to store transactional information. The latest release of the application had an error that caused massive data corruption in your Cloud SQL for MySQL database. You need to minimize data loss. What should you do? Option A. Open the Google Cloud Console. Navigate to SQL greater than backups and select the last version of the automated backup before the corruption. Option B. Reload the Cloud SQL for MySQL database using the load data command to load data from CSV files that were used to initialize the instance. Option C. Perform a point-in-time recovery of your Cloud SQL for MySQL database, selecting a date and time before the data was corrupted. Option D. Fail over to the Cloud SQL for MySQL high instance. Use that instance to recover the transactions that occurred before the corruption. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Perform a point-in-time recovery of your Cloud SQL for MySQL database, selecting a date and time before the data was corrupted. Question 26. You plan to use database migration service to migrate data from a PostgreSQL on-premises instance to Cloud SQL. You need to identify the prerequisites for creating and automating the task. What should you do? Choose 2. Option A. Drop or disable all users except database administration users. Option B. Disable all foreign key constraints on the source PostgreSQL database. Option C. Ensure that all PostgreSQL tables have a primary key. Option D. Shut down the database before the data migration service task is started. Option A. Ensure that pglogical is installed on the source PostgreSQL database. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Ensure that all PostgreSQL tables have a primary key. Option A. Ensure that pglogical is installed on the source PostgreSQL database. Question 27. You are using Compute Engine on Google Cloud and your data center to manage a set of MySQL databases in a hybrid configuration. You need to create replicas to scale reads and to offload part of the management operation. What should you do? Option A. Use external server replication. Option B. Use data migration service. Option C. Use Cloud SQL for MySQL external replica. Option D. Use the MySQL dump utility in binary logs. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Use Cloud SQL for MySQL external replica. Question 28. Your company is shutting down their data center and migrating several MySQL and PostgreSQL databases to Google Cloud. Your database operations team is severely constrained by ongoing production releases and the lack of capacity for additional on-premises backups. You want to ensure that the scheduled migrations happen with minimal downtime and that the Google Cloud databases stay in sync with the on-premises data changes until the applications can cut over. What should you do? Choose 2. Option A. Use database migration service to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Option B. Use a cross-region read replica to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Option C. Use replication from an external server to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Option D. Use an external read replica to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Option A. Use a read replica to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Use database migration service to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Option C. Use replication from an external server to migrate the databases to Cloud SQL. Question 29. Your company is migrating the existing infrastructure for a highly transactional application to Google Cloud. You have several databases in a MySQL database instance and need to decide how to transfer the data to Cloud SQL. You need to minimize the downtime for the migration of your 500 GB instance. What should you do? Option A. 1. Create a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance for your databases. And configure DataStream to stream your database changes to Cloud SQL. 2. Select the Backfill Historical Data checkbox on your stream configuration to initiate DataStream to backfill any data that is out of sync between the source and destination. 3. Delete your stream when all changes are moved to Cloud SQL for MySQL. And update your application to use the new instance. Option B. 1. Create migration job using database migration service. 2. Set the migration job type to continuous. And allow the databases to complete the full dump phase and start sending data in change data capture CDC mode. 3. Wait for the replication delay to minimize. Initiate the promotion of the new Cloud SQL instance. And wait for the migration job to complete. 4. Update your application connections to the new instance. Option C. 1. Create migration job using database migration service. 2. Set the migration job type to one time. And perform this migration during a maintenance window. 3. Stop all write workloads to the source database and initiate the dump. Wait for the dump to be loaded into the Cloud SQL destination database and the destination database to be promoted to the primary Database. 4. Update your application connections to the new instance. Option D. 1. Use the MySQLDump utility to manually initiate the backup of MySQL during the application maintenance window. 2. Move the files to cloud storage and import each database into your Cloud SQL instance. 3. Continue to dump each database until all the databases are migrated. 4. Update your application connections to the new instance. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. 1. Create migration job using database migration service. 2. Set the migration job type to continuous and allow the databases to complete the full dump phase and start sending data in change data capture CDC mode. 3. Wait for the replication delay to minimize. Initiate the promotion of the new Cloud SQL instance and wait for the migration job to complete. 4. Update your application connections to the new instance. Question 30. Your company uses the Cloud SQL out-of-disk recommender to analyze the storage utilization trends of production databases over the last 30 days. Your database operations team uses these recommendations to proactively monitor storage utilization and implement corrective actions. You receive a recommendation that the instance is likely to run out of disk space. What should you do to address this storage alert? Option A. Normalize the database to the third normal form. Option B. Compress the data using a different compression algorithm. Option C. Manually or automatically increase the storage capacity. Option D. Create another schema to load older data. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Manually or automatically increase the storage capacity. Question 31. You are managing a mission-critical Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL instance. Your application team is running important transactions on the database when another DBA starts an on-demand backup. You want to verify the status of the backup. What should you do? Option A. Check the Cloud SQL. Google Apps. Com. Postgres. Log instance log. Option B. Perform the gcloud SQL operations list command. Option C. Use Cloud Audit logs to verify the status. Option D. Use the Google Cloud Console. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Perform the gcloud SQL operations list command. Question 32. You support a consumer inventory application that runs on a multi-region instance of Cloud Spanner. A customer opened a support ticket to complain about slow response times. You notice a cloud monitoring alert about high CPU utilization. You want to follow Google recommended practices to address the CPU performance issue. What should you do first? Option A. Increase the number of processing units. Option B. Modify the database schema and add additional indexes. Option C. Shard data required by the application into multiple instances. Option D. Decrease the number of processing units. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Increase the number of processing units. Question 33. Your company uses Bigtable for a user-facing application that displays a low-latency real-time dashboard. You need to recommend the optimal storage type for this read-intensive database. What should you do? Option A. Recommend solid-state drives, SSD. Option B. Recommend splitting the Bigtable instance into two instances in order to load balance the concurrent reads. Option C. Recommend hard disk drives, HDD. Option D. Recommend mixed storage types. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Recommend solid-state drives, SSD. Question 34. Your organization has a critical business app that is running with a Cloud SQL for MySQL backend Database. Your company wants to build the most fault-tolerant and highly available solution possible. You need to ensure that the application database can survive a zonal and regional failure with the primary region of US Central 1 and the backup region of US East 1. What should you do? Option A. 1. Provision a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in US Central 1A. 2. Create a multiple zone instance in US West 1B. 3. Create a read replica in US East 1C. Option B. 1. Provision a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in US Central 1A. 2. Create a multiple zone instance in US Central 1B. 3. Create a read replica in US East 1B. Option C. 1. Provision a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in US Central 1A. 2. Create a multiple zone instance in US East B. 3. Create a read replica in US East 1C. Option D. 1. Provision a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in US Central 1A. 2. Create a multiple zone instance in US East 1B. 3. Create a read replica in US Central 1B. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. 1. Provision a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance in US Central 1A. 2. Create a multiple zone instance in US Central 1B. 3. Create a read replica in US East 1B. Question 35. You are building an Android game that needs to store data on a Google Cloud serverless database. The database will log user activity, store user preferences, and receive in-game updates. The target audience resides in developing countries that have intermittent internet connectivity. You need to ensure that the game can synchronize game data to the backend database whenever an internet network is available. What should you do? Option A. Use Firestore. Option B. Use Cloud SQL with an external public IP address. Option C. Use an in-app embedded database. Option D. Use Cloud Spanner. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Use Firestore. Question 36. You released a popular mobile game and are using a 50 TB Cloud Spanner instance to store game data in a Python-enabled production environment. When you analyzed the game statistics, you realized that some players are exploiting a loophole to gather more points to get on the leaderboard. Another DBA accidentally ran an emergency bug fix script that corrupted some of the data in the production environment. You need to determine the extent of the data corruption and restore the production environment. What should you do? Choose 2. Option A. If the corruption is significant, use backup and restore, and specify a recovery timestamp. Option B. If the corruption is significant, perform a stale read and specify a recovery timestamp. Write the results back. Option C. If the corruption is significant, use import and export. Option D. If the corruption is insignificant, use backup and restore, and specify a recovery timestamp. Option A. If the corruption is insignificant, perform a stale read and specify a recovery timestamp. Write the results back. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. If the corruption is significant, use backup and restore, and specify a recovery timestamp. Option A. If the corruption is insignificant, perform a stale read and specify a recovery timestamp. Write the results back. Question 37. You are starting a large CSV import into a Cloud SQL for MySQL instance that has many open connections. You checked memory and CPU usage, and sufficient resources are available. You want to follow Google recommended practices to ensure that the import will not time out. What should you do? Option A. Close idle connections or restart the instance before beginning the import operation. Option B. Increase the amount of memory allocated to your instance. Option C. Ensure that the service account has the storage admin role. Option D. Increase the number of CPUs for the instance to ensure that it can handle the additional import. Operation. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Close idle connections or restart the instance before beginning the import operation. Question 38. You are migrating your data center to Google Cloud. You plan to migrate your applications to Compute Engine and your Oracle databases to bare metal solution for Oracle. You must ensure that the applications in different projects can communicate securely and efficiently with the Oracle databases. What should you do? Option A. Set up a shared VPC. Configure multiple service projects and create firewall rules. Option B. Set up serverless VPC access. Option C. Set up private service connect. Option D. Set up traffic director. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Set up a shared VPC. Configure multiple service projects and create firewall rules. Question 39. You are running an instance of Cloud Spanner as the backend of your e-commerce website. You learn that the quality assurance team has doubled the number of their test cases. You need to create a copy of your Cloud Spanner database in a new test environment to accommodate the additional test cases. You want to follow Google recommended practices. What should you do? Option A. Use Cloud Functions to run the export in Avro format. Option B. Use Cloud Functions to run the export in text format. Option C. Use Dataflow to run the export in Avro format. Option D. Use Dataflow to run the export in text format. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Use Dataflow to run the export in Avro format. Question 40. You need to redesign the architecture of an application that currently uses Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL. The users of the application complain about slow query response times. You want to enhance your application architecture to offer sub-millisecond query latency. What should you do? Option A. Configure Firestore and modify your application to offload queries. Option B. Configure Bigtable and modify your application to offload queries. Option C. Configure Cloud SQL for PostgreSQL RED replicas to offload queries. Option D. Configure Memory Store and modify your application to offload queries. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Configure Memory Store and modify your application to offload queries.